Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I got Elmo with me from the Elmo's World podcast. How you doing today, Elmo?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you for having me here, my friend.
Oh, absolutely. So tell us a little bit, give us an intro, tell us a little bit about what you do and what you got going on. Drop some links if you want to. I got a link to your podcast Twitter page in the description already. But if you got any more things you want to tell people about, by all means, go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Elmo. I'm 20 years old. I'm from the Philippines, and I've started my podcast 3 months ago. It's on Spotify, iTunes, everywhere you can find a podcast. I don't do YouTube, but hopefully someday. And I basically what I do is I interview people from all with all kinds of worldviews: Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, atheists, agnostics, and a lot of very weird people. But to me, I try to understand them and try to give them the hardest questions and give them a hard time. And it's not that I don't want to. It's a debate or argument thing. It's more of trying to have a genuine understanding of people, of how people think and what they believe, why they believe it, and how they would respond to counter arguments that you would present. And a lot of these people don't subscribe to sometimes to not normal logic, like common sense. So but it's really interesting and been a good experience. I'm actually here in John Anthony's show because he saw my post. I made a post called and that said atheism and nihilism are two counterparts.
I think it's inseparable, I believe. Was that right?
Yeah, inseparable.
Right. Okay. So yeah, let's get into that a little bit because I noticed that, and knowing what I know about atheism, what I know about nihilism, those things aren't mutually exclusive.
Well, mutually exclusive. Yeah,
But they're also not required of each other. So
well, that's where we get down to business,
right.
Because okay, I want to ask you first because I don't want to strawman you. And what is your definition of atheism, and what is your definition of nihilism?
I'll even go as far as my definition. As far as when I say I'm an atheist, I say I don't believe gods exist.
Positively, as a positive argument.
Right. I don't. I mean, I understand like people use it all kinds of different ways. Lack of belief, things like that. I'll go ahead and grant you that for this, even for the sake of this conversation, we'll use atheism in terms of, the proposition that God
doesn't exist. Okay.
Right.
And so, how about nihilism?
Nihilism, as far as I found several definitions for it, honestly, but I think the most common colloquial one that I think you were using is things don't have meaning.
Yeah, there's no intrinsic meaning in
right.
the universe. That's all. That's all.
Right.
I was,
Does there have to be intrinsic meaning for there to be meaning at all?
Yeah. Well, this gets down to what we call properly basic beliefs. And when we start having these discussions, we have to know the basic definitions. And to me, what the question is, what would qualify as something that is meaning, and when you have a worldview that subscribes to either dualism, materialism, or idealism. This is where you ground your arguments, and you can actually have a coherent and correspondent worldview that actually makes sense, because I agree that you can be an atheist and not be a nihilist.
Okay.
But what I was saying was that in a coherent worldview where you have logic, and everything coincides with what proper basic beliefs you have. Then there we have the we have their problems start to appear in terms of how you try to make sense of reality. And to me, um, I I I I will hold the position that in a coherent worldview, atheism is can only work with nihilism. And
So
yeah,
you said, okay, I was like a couple questions real quick to clarify. You said that you don't think all atheists are nihilists, but
yeah,
you think that if they're being coherent in their worldview, they would have to be. You think that atheists who aren't nihilists are essentially not being consistent.
yeah.
Okay. Also, is it possible to have a logically coherent worldview that isn't based on facts?
Yeah, in terms of what we define as coherent, in terms of that, it's simply having a valid worldview where there's no contradictions.
Right.
That's all.
So it's not necessarily we're not discussing whether or not it's actually true, whether or not it's logically coherent. Because if it's
Yeah,
logically incoherent, you're saying it's obviously not true, which I would
yeah,
agree with.
yeah,
So, but you said you said you claimed that it is possible to have a worldview that is logically coherent. It's not, it's actually possible, but not based on facts. So how do we decide? Basically, I guess what we're getting to is how do we decide whether or not this is actually true or not? I'm not really concerned with whether or not I can justify it through logic or to show that it's valid in form, because a worldview really doesn't matter if it's valid in form. You just said we can create a worldview that has no bearing on reality, has no basis in reality whatsoever, that is still logically valid.
yeah. And this is the thing when we start having these discussions. For example, you have to have an understanding of what your opponent's position is and what yours is, and when you both understand, and you have to get down to the actions that people subscribe to. For example, in order for us to have a conversation, a proper one with a common sense conversation, I have to presuppose that you exist, that you're not some robot, and stuff like that. And this goes on through in a with a practical sense,
Well,
but
you don't really have to presuppose it. I don't think.
yeah,
I think we can demonstrate to a high degree of confidence that each of us exist.
yeah, you can. The thing with philosophy, though, is that when there might be some like an intuitional, obvious, common sense thing. Of course, I'm not the only one that exists. You could say that, but with proper philosophy, there are things. It boils down to skepticism, to proper skepticism. And you can realize that even the philosophers in the past have struggled with this, and having them and with them leading to thinking about metaphysics, reality, with Descartes, Hume, Jacob, uh, Kierkegaard, and all these philosophers know that uh, it could it's not just common sense that is necessary to have logic to engage in philosophy.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm not saying we should just say, oh, it's common sense, and that be the end of the argument. We should definitely, but I think we can give evidence to support each other's existence to a degree higher than 50%, which is all we would need to actually be convinced of something. So if I can demonstrate to you that I exist and convince you, higher than a 50% confidence rating, then you have proper justification, proper epistemic justification to continue engaging with me in conversation, right?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and but when we talk about again, but when we discuss these topics, what you said was that, if I heard it correct, that we can demonstrate these things with a higher degree of confidence, and so we can arrive closer to the truth, right? That it's most probable that I'm not just a solipsist thinking all the reality, and so it's highly probable, like, that others exist, and there's an objective reality we're sharing, and but again, when we what my approach was in that, and saying and claiming that, in a coherence, atheism is can only be coherent when it it's nihilistic, and
Yeah,
I would love
yeah,
I would love
lay
if
that out
we
for me
could
a little bit.
engage that.
Yeah, lay
Yeah.
that out for me a little bit. Like, lay out how you get from atheism to this necessitates nihilism.
Okay, so if there is no God, there is no grand scheme of things, no greater meaning, no intrinsic meaning, and therefore there is no meaning.
So the only type of meaning is intrinsic.
Yeah, and the only meaning that actually matters, that has meaning.
Matters to who?
Well, that matters.
Well, okay. Is there anything that objectively matters?
Yeah.
So if okay, when I say objective, I think I use it somewhat differently than some people. Um, I say, like, if imagine if we removed all minds from the universe, this thing would still be true. That's what I mean when I say objective.
Hmm.
So if there were no minds, how can something matter?
Well, that's why, when we have, like, we when we only need we always need a giver meaning to have meaning, so
You would need
that's
a mind, right?
yeah.
So if I take away all minds, if all minds are removed from the universe, there can be no meaning because meaning requires minds to give it meaning. Correct?
I don't think I don't get what you're saying. So, but what you're saying is that, what kind of mind are we talking about? The
Any mind. The what kind of mind doesn't matter. It's any mind. So something to be objective has to be independent of a mind, of any mind.
Yeah,
Right. So if we remove all minds, there is no meaning. Right.
there's still meaning.
Based on what?
Well, on God.
Well, no,
God
God's
is
a mind.
the
Is God a mind?
well. I don't know what's God's true ultimate nature. Is infallible, but in
Well,
terms
in your
of
opinion, like
how
in your model of
in
God, does God have a mind?
well, I could say, yeah, in a way, yeah.
Okay. So this is so for something to be objective, it's also independent of God's mind, also because something being objective is mind independent.
Yeah, I see what you're doing in a way that, yeah, you're pointing to something similar to a Euthyphro's. Uh,
No, no, this isn't about like morality or anything. This is
yeah, but it's in a way similar to the position that you would put God in, like, if something is good, or slash has meaning, does it have
oh,
meaning
okay.
because God gave it meaning, or God made it more moral, or is it moral outside of God, or does it have meaning outside of God? I
Okay.
would I would say
Okay.
God is the one that gives meaning.
So I say I have a picture of one of my children, right? That picture has meaning to me, right?
well, not in the intrinsic sense, I would say. Because I would again ask the question, in a coherent worldview, what are your presuppositions? Like, are you presupposing that there is no God, that
No, I don't
you're
presuppose
purely
there's no God.
material?
No,
So
I'm not presupposing anything.
then what's the point in that? When we ask again, like for example, when you mentioned that, if I look at my daughter's picture, right? Was it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there meaning in that? uh uh Again, like, let's ask the question, what are you? What are you made of? What are the 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 premises in the thing that in the picture that you present?
What am I made of? I'm not. I guess I'm not following the question. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So are you in a materialist universe? Yeah, pure materialism.
Um, from what I can tell, I'd say I'm in a physical universe. If that's the same thing,
Again, okay, so let me clarify this. Okay,
okay.
for
Yeah.
example, I think there are three basic reality universalities that one can live in. For example, it's either a purely materialistic or a physicalist universe,
Okay.
a dualist universe, and then an idealist universe. That everything is just idea, solipsism. And so, but when you're in a materialist universe, then everything is just matter. We're all just atoms clashing with each other. Me and you are talking. We're not actually individuals. We're not actually we're just concepts made in this brain of ours that is purely matter. We're just electrons banging in entropy, but in a sort of in a very random way. And so when you have a materialist universe, you cannot produce a coherent principle of individuation, and where I could say that I am something that is a person, and in
Well,
a
no,
materialist universe, we're all
we kind of do
animals. We're all there is no us. There is not there is no um individuality. We're all just one universe that
and that's in a
it
physical universe to you.
just in entropy.
That's so. You're saying we can't differentiate between two things in a physicalist universe?
Yeah.
I mean, no, we can do that very, very well because all we need to do is develop
And
a language to do so, which we've done with logic. We have the law of identity. You know, if you're A and I'm B, I am not A and you are not B. So we've just differentiated between two different things, and we have a perfectly
yeah,
coherent language to do so.
yeah, but what I meant was that in a physicalist universe, there are no persons. There is no me. There
Sure,
is no you. We're
sure
all
is.
just
I just did that.
electrons.
I just did that. If you're you and I'm me, I am not you and you are not me.
Yeah.
A and
Okay. But
not this is A
uh,
and not A. This is law of
okay.
identity.
Okay. Let me. You can. Okay. How about this? Like, who are you? Let me. This is not an insult or anything, not
Yeah,
degrading. I just
no,
want
no
to
problem. Yeah,
get
go
down to
ahead.
the basic.
Go ahead.
What are you? Are you just your brain? Are you your consciousness? What is the I that you're referring to?
Well, there's multiple labels, and we can use, and some labels are used for multiple things.
Yeah, but
Like
what
I'm
but
a
what is your
yeah.
ontology? That I'm asking, like, what is your
I thought
ontology?
like where did I come from basically?
No. What are you? What is your nature?
I'm a animal of the human species.
Yeah. So, but okay. Because this is the when you're in a physicalist universe, if that's your coherent worldview, what we're basically doing is we're just material brains uh an emergent consciousness where we simply assign meaning to things, but there's not actually no meaning. In a way, we're just where there are no there we're all just NPCs in a
Well, okay,
in a game.
real quick though. If we're assigning meaning, but there is no meaning, what are we assigning then?
We're assigning concepts in our brain that are uh, just atoms and electrons and protons and all these stuff. It's
Right. So you
purely
just say
material
so meaning is just would just be a brain state then in a physical
in a
right.
physicalist universe.
And like we get back to earlier when I said if we removed all minds from the universe, you said there could be meaning or there could not.
If we remove all human minds, I would say that there could still be intrinsic meaning
Then
if
you're gonna
God gives this intrinsic meaning.
I think you're going to get into a case of special pleading with that because if I say that God's
Why?
mind is somehow different than other minds, we're going to need maybe a different label, or even you have to show how God's mind is different. And I don't know that we can get into that right now, but because if I just say all minds are removed, that means anything that qualifies as a mind.
Well, when we talk about it's funny how you presented special pleading, but because to me, I don't think that's special pleading. I think it's part of me having a coherent worldview that makes sense, and when I can claim that God gives meaning, I in the framework that I work with, that's not a problem. There's no special pleading in that.
Well, if you say that minds are required for meaning, well, if you say God is required for meaning, and God has a mind, how do we tell whether or not? I mean, because if you can't do this thought experiment with me, like it's like if I say we pull all minds from the world or from the universe, does this still exist? And you say, well, we pull all minds except God's mind. So now how can we tell that if this is a product of God's mind, which would ultimately make it subjective also? Is it if we pull all minds, let me say I lost my train of thought. If we pull all minds from the universe, how can we tell if this is a product of God's mind or if this is something that is still true, irrespective of God's mind?
Yeah, so this is why I said this earlier, that we're working with coherence here, and we can get down to correspondence later, like demonstrating it in a scientific testable, because I don't know I wouldn't be so sure we can test God out or something, so but again, when we talk about coherence, does it make sense? If this is the model that you create of reality, of your worldview, would it make sense? Would it be logical? And so
How about this?
when we
Sorry, I'll just grant you that I can create a worldview that includes God that makes that coherent. That's no problem.
yeah
But I mean,
yeah and it
I
is
can also.
coherent.
But would you agree that I can say that under an atheist worldview, I can also create a model that gives us meaning without a God? Because I can just say that's not intrinsic meaning; it's just extrinsic meaning.
When okay, I have no problem with that, but we are tackling nihilism, and nihilism ultimately grapples specifically with an objective intrinsic meaning in the universe. So if it's intrinsic, like atoms trying to form these concepts in the brain, then I'm fine with that. It's a physical universe, okay?
Yeah. So so then why is it bad to not have intrinsic meaning? Then what is wrong if there's no intrinsic meaning to anything? I don't think that's what nihilism is really talking about, though, because there's even versions of nihilism that question
Yeah, I'm
existence of
familiar with
everything.
the versions
Yeah.
of nihilism.
So
But
So
what I was specifically
mhm.
referring in that in nihilism is in that there is no objective or intrinsic meaning if you're an atheist in an atheistic worldview.
Okay, so so does everything have intrinsic meaning under a theistic worldview?
Yeah, if can you repeat that? You cut off.
Would everything have intrinsic meaning under a theistic worldview?
It, in a theist's worldview,
Yeah, under a model that believes in God.
yeah, because God gives the intrinsic meaning.
Okay, is that meaning equal to everyone?
No,
So who decides the level of meaning?
God.
Okay, so I mean, give an example. Um, I would imagine. Do you have children or anything? Or
No, I'm 20 years old.
oh well, I mean, I know 20-year-olds that have children, but so you have family members, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I would say that my family members probably don't mean as much to you, and vice versa. Correct?
Hmm.
So we've just demonstrated right there that people can have different concepts of meaning for certain things. So if there's an intrinsic meaning, how are we getting different levels of meaning between people?
Yeah, when again uh what is intrinsic meaning? So intrinsic meaning means that it's innate, it's it's given, it's there objectively. But in a physicalist worldview, um the, everything everything is meaningless, so
Well, no,
and
it's intrinsically meaningless. Maybe
what do
intrinsically
you mean?
meaningless, not meaningless completely.
Okay, so it's intrinsically meaningless. I'm fine with that. Okay, but that doesn't mean that it has intrinsic meaning. It could be intrinsically meaning. Okay,
Right. So if
I'm
so
not
let's
sure.
let's just say I grant that nothing has intrinsic meaning. What changes? Why is that? Why is intrinsic meaning better than just the meaning I give to something? Just I have a picture of my child. I
Mhm.
think it's meaningful. I have
Mhm.
imbued meaning onto that object. Why is the
Okay,
intrinsic meaning better than the meaning that I imbue on something?
well, that's a great question. So this is something that I would refer to Nietzsche for and how he viewed this. Because when he said that God is dead, in a way that because of it's actually claimed that metaphysics is dead because of the science and the academic or the secularism that's growing in civilization. He gave an argument that says that because we lose this intrinsic meaning when we resort to nihilism, society would break down and all that stuff because our how we look at institutions, at rules, would result into pure subjectivity. If it and it falls down to subjectivity, he made like predictions, like that actually came true, like what happened in the next 100 years with communism and fascism. That because of the growing and spread of secularism, and so when it starts with that, with what's with your question, like what is the difference between a world where there is intrinsic meaning and there is no intrinsic meaning. Okay, then in a physicalist worldview where there is no intrinsic meaning and there is no God, then everything is permissible.
Everything is permissible. Does that mean we should promote a society where everything is permissible?
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay, so
I'm
that
not
that's
saying that.
that's that's the that, that's what you would need to get to say that this view that there is no God leads to these communist things and all that because if
No,
I, if I
what I was saying, I can clarify what as I was saying. What I was saying that is, if you follow it logically and coherently, if in with two premises that there is no intrinsic meaning, there is no God, then what we have is that everything is permissible logically, and that's why, and actually philosophers have a lot of them have accepted and for example and have resulted to making existential arguments for their lives. Like for example, that's why we have Sartre, Camus, absurd uh with absurdism, because that's why it's called existential nihilism, because within a nihilist world, physicalist reality where there is no intrinsic meaning, we can find meaning in the absurdity. We can find meaning in with a will to power, which Nietzsche tackles. So uh, that's and there's
I
nothing
don't
wrong
think
with.
I don't think we're finding meaning. I think we're like I said before. I think we're just imbuing meaning. We are giving the meaning to something for ourselves. We are essentially basically um, projecting meaning onto something.
Uh, yeah, but in a way, but if you follow it logically from a materialist worldview, you have to understand that there is no you, and
So there's still a me.
um. Okay,
How
how
is
would you
yeah and I noticed Axioms on Trial brought this up in the chat when we talked. You talked about this earlier. It was we look at the cogito where I think therefore I am. The experience is happening to the experiencer. The experiencer is the I.
yeah, cogito ergo sum?
Right.
Are you referring to?
Right. Descartes.
Okay, but can you prove that?
It 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 proves itself essentially. It's
Do you think you can using that argument you can with absolute certainty prove that you exist with that specific argument?
the fact that there's an experience happening means there's an experiencer. Correct.
Well, okay then. But okay, but when you have Hume already tackled the cogito ergo sum and made his criticisms, and but okay, I give my take on this. I don't think you can absolutely claim that to use that cogito ergo sum as the perfect argument, because there are a lot of presuppositions with that as well. First is you presuppose that the nature of truth, nature of you presuppose
No,
logic,
no,
and
that comes after. Logic would come after because if you're having the experience, it doesn't matter what type of experience or whether or not a true actual truth or you're experiencing anything that's objectively true. That doesn't even matter. The fact that there's
the
any experience happening means
logic matters.
no,
For example,
not in that. No.
within the statement itself, logic
Well, the statement, yes.
strings it together.
The statement, yes. I'm not
Yeah, and
talking
so
about.
and you presuppose logic in that
No,
statement.
I'm not talking about the statement. I'm talking about the fact that there's an experience happening.
Yeah, and the fact that there's an experience happening, it also presupposes logic.
No, logic comes after, like after after
Logic
the
is not
experience.
just in the words, in the syllogisms. Logic
No,
is
logic is a language.
no, it's not.
Yeah, yeah. Logic's a language that we invented.
Okay, the thing though is, so do you think that the universe is logical, or
The universe is logical. We use logic to describe the universe.
yeah, but do you think that the universe follows logic? That you think that reality follows logic?
I think logic follows the universe. I think like law of identity we use that to
How does
describe.
how does logic follow the universe?
because it's used to
I'm
describe.
still
Logic is used to describe what is.
okay, but then that would mean that logic is purely subjective because
Yes.
uh okay.
Well,
So
essentially,
are
yes.
you,
It was
so you're
made
saying
up.
that so subjective as in it could be wrong.
Just because
You're
something's
saying that
subjective.
logic.
No, no. Just because something's subjective doesn't mean it could be wrong.
Okay, let me get this straight. So you're saying that logic is subjective. That what? How do you define subjective? I don't want to
Well,
strawman you.
yeah,
I might misunderstand.
subjective means dependent on a mind.
No, that's not what subjective is.
Well, earlier we said objective was if we remove it's independent of minds, meaning if we removed all minds, this would still be true. So subjective means that we necessarily require a mind for it to exist.
Okay, okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, but let's apply that. That logic is subjective. Okay, you have your logic, I have my logic, and so when we describe the universe, do we arrive at the same logical conclusion?
No, that,
If you're
that
using
possibly
the real logic, that if there's we're
right.
just using one.
Well,
So how
if
is
we're
it
using
subjective?
I'm sorry, yeah, if we're using agreed upon logic, I mean, at some point someone had to literally formulate the statement, A equals A, law of identity.
Okay, I want to I want to analyze what you just said, bro. Like
Okay. Yeah.
you're saying that logic is dependent on my mind. Okay.
Well, depending on
I have
some
a
mind,
remote. I
some
have a
mind.
remote, and I admit, or I say I claim that this remote follows the law of non-contradiction, the law of identity, and law of excluded law of uh, excluded middle. Do you think that's subjective?
Do, do I think your assessment is subjective?
Okay. Okay, so it might not follow the law of non-contradiction. That this remote could be not a remote at the same time.
No, because if you've defined it as as this remote, therefore it cannot be not the remote. That
Yeah,
descri-
because it follow
right. It follows the
because
law. It
logic
follows.
is, because
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, I think there might be a misunderstanding here, and I
Okay.
don't want to press on that, but
Yeah.
I just want to say that when you say that logic is simply descriptive, it becomes uh sand, it becomes unreliable, it becomes ultimately useless.
Well, it's not useless. I mean, we don't need absolute certainty to make something useful.
No, I'm not saying it's absolute certainty. I'm saying what logic, the nature of logic itself, what logic is, right? So if logic, for example, non-contradiction, something x can be both a and cannot be both a and not a. So if that is purely subjective, then so what, right?
Right. But well, if
I
there
don't
is no okay,
I
if
don't
there's
get your point here.
well, here's the thing: if there is no A, if A doesn't exist at all, then we have no A equals A, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have to have for in order to have A equals A, you have to actually have an A that exists or some kind of concept of A. You have to have it, whether conceptually or physically. You have to have something to describe.
Okay.
So the label comes second. A comes after the thing that is. Right? The label A comes after what already is.
I'm not following, but
So you just said you held up the remote. You can't
mhm,
make the statement this is a remote without the remote existing, right?
mhm.
So the remote had to be there before the statement. The remote is the remote, and it is not the remote.
Well, you can say that yeah, but in a way we describe logic with language, but logic in itself has to be part of the nature of the universe, if we're if, and how we describe it. And
Well,
so
I
And
don't think
so
it has to be. No, I think, like I said, I think that logic is just pretty descriptive. It's a language that describes reality, and because we have to have reality first, logic comes second. There's no inherent logic. There's no undergirding language that prescribes what reality is. Logic is
okay,
just the
so in a
language we
way you're
develop.
yes, in a way you're saying that the universe without the people that without humans, without minds, the universe is not logical. That there is no logic in the universe without someone who conceived it.
Yeah, logic was invented by humans.
Okay, so without the human, without minds, the universe could actually could be contradictory to itself. It
No,
could
no,
disobey the
no.
identity. Okay, so
There wouldn't there,
if that's the case, if
there
that's the
wouldn't be an
case,
identity.
then
There wouldn't be a law of identity if humans didn't exist. The concept would still be true, but the concept wouldn't exist because there'd be no minds.
yeah, okay. Like for example, if the Earth was destroyed, no humans exist.
Okay.
Let's say in that thought experiment, would the sun still be the sun? Would the Earth be would Mars be also Venus and stuff like that?
Yeah, so everything would be what it is. I agree with that. That doesn't mean that we didn't that
If it
logic.
if
That's not
it's what
logic,
it is,
though.
if you say it's what it is, then
That's
it
not logic.
obeys the laws of logic.
It's not following a law of logic if no one has labeled anything as logic. There's no inherent
Yeah, but
logic. There's no like I said, there's no undergirding ultimate logic that prescribes that something is what it is. Something is what
okay.
it is,
Okay,
regardless of whether it's
I'll try to avoid using the term logic then. Just if there are no minds on Earth, we're all erased again. Would Mars still be Mars?
yes.
So
It wouldn't be called Mars.
yeah. But would the planet, matter in Mars still be matter?
Yes.
Without the minds.
Yes.
Okay, good, good. But when you say that, it means that even without human minds, the universe would still be in order, and this order is how we describe as logical. Would you agree?
We would describe this as
Yeah.
logical.
Okay. This order, yeah, not this order, but this order would still be inherent in the universe and would maintain itself, right?
But
So
it's not
in this case,
it's
this
not a
order,
prescriptive thing though. It sounds like you're trying to make it a prescriptive thing instead of a descriptive thing. Because you're saying that this order is somehow what makes it logical. Logic is what's used to describe what already is. Like logic doesn't come from
no,
something
I'm not,
without mind. Okay.
I didn't say that it's the what I was saying was that simply without human minds, Mars would still be Mars. The
Right.
universe would still be in this order. So in this case, then um, uh, the law of non-contradiction, no identity, excluded middle, is still prevalent in the universe, even without human minds.
These things
And we're probably going on a tangent
yeah.
on this, but uh,
I would agree these things are still true. These things aren't true because of logic. These things are true because this is just the physical
yeah.
fact of the universe. So logic really doesn't play into it. It's just these things are true. So it's what we're getting to earlier though. Let's try. Yeah, you're right. I think we should try to bring it back to the nihilism topic. So you would agree that what's wrong with calling extra? I guess my earlier question was what's wrong with saying that the meaning I give to something else is somehow worse or somehow inferior to intrinsic meaning.
Well, it comes down to teleology, I think. when we discuss teleology. When I say intrinsic meaning, I'm saying there's it's divine intrinsic meaning, so it's a God given. So in that case, there would be a grand scheme made by God, and there would be an accountability or something that is divine. It's universal. That's the difference.
I get that. That's fine. Like I said earlier, like I said, I'm willing to concede that you can make a perfectly coherent argument that if
Yeah.
God exists, there's intrinsic meaning to something, to things.
Yeah.
And I
So,
can
so
say,
what I'm saying
but,
is that
but mhm.
what I think you would agree with this, that what I was saying was that in atheism, it's coherent because in a world without God, there is no God given meaning.
Well, honestly, I
That's
don't
what I
know.
was.
I think it would depend on. Could you imagine a God that doesn't care? That like just there's a God, but it does. I mean, a deist would say that there's a God, but there's no that it doesn't care about what us or anything about us. It doesn't care if we live, die, earthquakes happen, whatever. It doesn't interfere in reality whatsoever. So there's still a God there, but there's no intrinsic meaning. Would you agree with that?
I don't know what you mean by a God that doesn't care.
Like
Can
a
you
deist worldview,
like
like a deist is a deistic God is a God that basically first cause, but has no interest in human beings over any other animal. It
well,
just
if it's deism, then it's not atheism.
right, but under the deistic model, wouldn't that mean there is no intrinsic meaning also?
Yeah, okay, I would agree that in a deistic one where there's an evil God, there might be
Well, not
that
even evil,
doesn't
just
care about
indifferent.
us
Yeah, just
ultimately.
indifferent.
Yeah, just indifferent. That I could say that there is that it's a meaningless universe if God doesn't care about us.
So now we have a
It's
situation where not it's so atheism and deism would lead to nihilism, in your opinion.
okay, sure.
So isn't deism a form of theism?
No.
It isn't.
Uh Deism believes in something like a god. It could be theism, but I think that why there's a difference in how they were worded. Deism means deity, and theism probably refers to the Christian God or Muslim gods or classical God.
So, but if deism is a form of theism, which most people agree that it is, because theism is the overarching belief that some God exists, right?
No, I think theism specifically tackles um, the classical God that is all powerful, all knowing,
Well, then
omnibenevolent.
what is atheism to you then?
Atheism is a lack of belief or a not unbelief.
In just those gods or all gods?
Any God.
So why is atheism a lack of belief in any God, but theism, you take the A off, and now it's just theism. Why is that a belief
Well,
in a
I don't
specific
know how
God?
I don't know how the English language works, but it's there's also there's cultural stuff happening there. It, words aren't perfectly made. I
Well,
don't
no,
know
no,
how
I'm not.
they
But we're talking about something
conceive of
being
it.
coherent here, and I think this is
Okay. I think that let me define it again, though. I have a friend who's an atheist, and I think this would be the proper definition of what an atheist is. He doesn't believe a religious God, but he's an atheist that could believe in some sort of contingent being that created the universe, but it's not the classical God. So it could be an atheist and believe in sort of a deist. I'm not. Yeah.
I don't know how you get those together, because then I think we really are getting into the law of non-contradiction there. Because if I say that, let's just take away the word theism and atheism for a second. P is the belief that gods exist. not P is not the belief that gods exist, the belief that gods don't exist. What most people agree that P is the belief that God, not P is atheism. Even if you use it in the strictest sense, most people will say anyone who says gods do not exist is an atheist. I don't know of another word to describe that concept.
Well, I don't think I agree because atheists have a diverse set of how they would define themselves an atheist. So it would be representative of me to use how you define that.
Right, but I guess it's if we started getting into the realm of I'm a deist. I believe this kind of God exists, but it's different than theism because this is a different kind of God. Now we're having basically multiple branches of theism that can exist on their own.
Okay, let me how about this? Like theism is under the branch of deism. I would agree on that.
Oh, so then am I still an atheist or an adeist?
Maybe I don't know. I think that atheist is a cultural thing, so it sounds better.
Well, if deism is the overarching belief, the big circle in which theism is inside, then I would have to.
Maybe you're an atheist, but as long as you're an atheist, the argument still stands.
Okay, so if
yeah, it is funny.
I guess it is. I've never really heard this line of
okay, let me
argumentation
Google
before.
it.
I mean, from what I understand, and most people that I've talked to seem to agree that theism is the belief that some God exists.
Yeah, I think there's a word that's actually atheist. It actually exists.
Well, I'm sure there is, but I think that I would also think that deism is a subset of theism, because if I believe that some God exists, and then we get into the minutia of what the specific characteristics of this God is.
Let me Google what theism means, and then I would concede.
Yeah, that's fine.
If it's purely just believing in a God. Okay, so theism is the religious belief that at least one God exists, while rejecting the existence of or importance of polytheistic gods or goddesses. In a broader definition, it can also be the belief in God or gods in general, including all types of God beliefs.
Okay, so wouldn't that cover deism? Because deism is a type of God belief, right?
Yeah, but I think there's a difference, though. Let me read what deism means. Yeah, but okay. Where is it? Hey, my internet is slow. Okay. Can you Google it?
I mean, I'm fine with your definition. I mean, it's you're wanting to Google what deism?
Deism is the philosophical position that rejects revelation as a source of religious knowledge and asserts that reason and observation of the natural world are sufficient to establish the existence of a supreme being.
This is deism
or creator. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think that includes a God belief?
Yeah, so I think that theism is a subset of deism because of that definition.
Really? Okay. So theism is a subset of deism.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Belief in the existence of a supreme being, specifically of a creator who does not intervene in the universe. The term is used chiefly of an intellectual movement of the 17th and 18th centuries. It accepted the existence of a creator on the basis of reason, but rejected belief in supernatural deity who interacts with humankind. Okay, so either does that include God belief or not? I guess that's what I would ask.
Yeah, I think that's what the definition says. That there could deism entails there could be a creators.
So if I'm a deist, would you say that I believe in a God? If I subscribe to that definition,
And I don't know what a deism would logically conclude. They might believe in Cthulhu or something. So
okay. I mean,
I'm
that's
not
fine.
sure.
So if deism is a form is not a form of theism, that's fine. I I don't know that. I guess you could be an atheist and say that it's aliens or something like that, and that would be that would fall under
Yeah,
supreme creator because I guess you could.
yeah,
We're calling it supreme because it's more powerful than us or something.
yeah,
So I guess you could get
yeah.
into that, but I've never heard it used that way. But that's interesting. Um, so try to get back around to where we're at before. This idea that meaning from a God, meaning given to us from a God, this divine meaning that we have, that you say we have.
Hmm.
If I concede that we just say, okay, you can make a coherent argument that says God equals intrinsic meaning. And I say, fine. I don't think
Uh,
atheism equals intrinsic meaning. I don't think you can get intrinsic meaning from atheism without a God. I think you can get other
yeah.
types of meaning. So
Okay,
if
I'm fine with that, but just not intrinsic meaning.
so, I guess again, why is this meaning that comes from a God better than the meaning I give something?
Because it comes from God. You know that there's account. You will be accountable for this. So
I'm
and
accountable for the meaning God gave me.
yeah.
What is the meaning God gave me?
Well, if you're a theist, it would be a lot of things. You know, it could be a lot of different things. So it it's a lot to break down.
Well, I guess what kind of hangs me up on this is I use the example of the picture. I give meaning to this picture. It holds significance to me. So essentially, that's what we're saying. This thing is significant in this way, and I can explain to you why it's significant. It's significant because it's of my child, and I love my child. Maybe it's a day that we had. There was some certain memory that I enjoy, a day that I enjoyed together with him, or something along those lines. Place we visited, something. This has meaning to me because of those things. And to say that we have meaning because of God, which means we have meaning to God. We are meaningful to God. How does that mean that we should be meaningful to each other?
Um, is my internet okay? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, you're coming in fine.
Okay. Well, when it comes to that, I like the Christian term. How would it the verse that says that it, if you love God with all your heart and mind, soul and body and all that stuff, uh, you it's both that you should also love your neighbor as yourself, and it goes both ways. You know, you cannot love God and not love your neighbor. You cannot love your neighbor and not love God. And I think that's how intrinsic meaning could work in a Christian worldview. And so and I think the crux of the matter here is that what I was saying in my post was always that if you're an atheist, if you don't believe in God, then the universe is ultimately doesn't have God given intrinsic meaning.
Well,
And
that
so
would
I don't think you would disagree with that.
well, yeah, that would be definitionally true, but that's not what nihilism means.
Well, that nihilism, that's what intrinsic meaning is.
No,
And
nihilism
so
nihilism is devoid of any meaning, whether intrinsic or otherwise. And then there's nothing in like
what do you
anything.
mean?
Well, there's nothing philosophically that I've found that says that nihilism is the absence of intrinsic meaning. It's just the absence of meaning. Period. Like we already agreed that I can give meaning to things.
Hmm.
So if I can give meaning to things, that is still meaning. It's just not, to, in your opinion, as meaningful as the divine meaning, the intrinsic meaning that we would have.
Well, again, when you talk about like meaning, if it hello, it's
Yeah,
am I still on
yeah,
because
you're
you're
here. I can hear you.
pausing. Okay, okay. Uh, you know, because I think that but so you said earlier that you agree with me that without if you don't believe in God, then there is no God-given intrinsic meaning. But then we tackle what nihilism means.
Yeah, well,
You
if
know,
there's
what
no
does
God, there's no.
nihilism?
Well, if there's no God, there's no God-given
Okay,
meaning. That would just follow logically. Yes.
no, no, yeah, it's okay. You're fine with that, and that
Yeah.
was that's what I've been saying all along. And so, I think then this would bring us to the discussion of what what is nihilism, because there are kinds of nihilism. So, I think what the most prevalent um definition of nihilism is that there is no greater meaning in the grand scheme of things. That I'm gonna read. Uh, so this I googled some definitions, earlier. So nihilism is the rejection of all religious and moral principles in the belief that life is meaningless. So it's meaningless in that it's not in the religious or moral sense of the term. It's a doctrine that assumes that life is meaningless
Uh
and
oh. So Elbows, you're cutting out a little bit. I don't know if you can still hear me, but I think your internet maybe messed up a little bit. But we'll try to get him back. Hopefully, we can get him back and go from there. But yeah, he's we'll try to get him back here in a second. The idea, what I'm trying to get to basically is this idea that nihilism, we're without meaning. Okay, I think we got him back. So I can bring him back in. What's up, buddy? You back?
yeah.
All
And
right,
so
great.
yeah, and so I think though this the you can actually see what how the 20th century thought about what God meant to the meaning of our lives. When Nietzsche said God is dead, it brought about nihilism. And so in this problem that if we have no God, we're what are we gonna do with ourselves? And so that's why we have absurdism, other existentialist worldviews that ground themselves on a worldview without intrinsic meaning, without a God.
So, like I said, I get that saying there's no intrinsic meaning without a God. That's fine. I'll even grant you that. I just have the thing I'm hung up on is there's no reason because you already agreed earlier that like my family members aren't as meaningful to you as your family members are to you. So we have different levels of meaning already. Under the Christian worldview, even like what you said earlier, we should love your neighbors yourself the way God loves you. If do you think that do you think that everyone should be equally meaningful then to everyone? Like should my
You
family
could try.
should my family members be equally meaningful to you as they are to me?
Well, in a utopian universe where we can all love every single human being, why not?
Okay, so if we have a scenario where someone's going to kill one of your family members or one of my family members, who are you? And you have to pick. Who are you picking?
Well, if I was truly purely perfect Christian, then uh, to me, like family I would treat the whole world as my family. So in a way, but I wouldn't say that I'm a perfect Christian. So I would reduce myself to my own selfishness and prefer my family.
Well, what would the perfect Christian do?
Well, you would. I think that you could see the perfect Christian in Jesus Christ. You know, and there's actually a verse in a chapter in the Bible, or that verse that when Mary, when Mary and some of Jesus's relatives wanted to see him in a huge crowd, um, Jesus said that let it be, you know, because everyone is as important to him. So in a way that
Well,
there's
that
actually no nepotism in that.
well, that's fine. So if you're so, what would be so if you're a perfect Christian, let's just say you're a perfect Christian and you had that decision to make. It's either your family member or mine. One of them has to be killed. What are you going to base that on? How are you going to decide which person's killed?
Okay. Well, I guess then that in that situation, uh it I would ignore what the meaning, you know, that wouldn't be a factor in it. I
Right.
would it the only
They
the
both have equal meaning
yeah.
under that. So what will be the factor?
I think the factor would be uh, do I know my family member? You know, the it would be very very complicated, but
Well, you know your family member.
um
You don't know mine. I mean, you've never met him before.
yeah, exactly.
So you would choose based on just who you know.
Well, okay. Then let me clarify the foundations of me making that decision. You know, to me, if I choose either one, that would be a very an evil act,
Right,
because
but
I would be
in this thought
trying
experiment,
to
you have to choose one.
I would have to, and then I'm arriving at that. And so in that, given that both actions or both options are impure, evil, you know, are wrong, and then I would if I were a truly perfect person, then that actually subscribes to my my belief in the importance of equal importance of human life, then I would have to I wouldn't be able to choose. So so in that sense, then that I would have a factor, which is that that would result or succumb to my personal human feelings. And so in that sense, then I would choose my family members, but with a given that it's still a wrong action. It's still immoral.
Well, I failed to clarify the thought experiment a little bit better because the thought experiment is that that one has to die or both die. So it's better that one die and not both because that would be the morally beneficial outcome. Because
In
two
a
people
way,
dying is
yeah,
worse than one person dying. So, but the thing
yeah.
is that how you make the choice is you're still. I think in a way you're still saying that I'm choosing this person based on the fact that I know them. So that that seems to be that this person has more value to me.
No, I don't think value was included there. It was just a harsh
But it's
decision
a
with
preference. It's your
and
preference,
rash
though,
decision.
right? It's your preference
Well,
that the person that you
but
know not be
what?
killed.
Yeah, but what is preference though? Preference entails not just meaning, but also other things like emotion. But it's not preference doesn't difference in preference doesn't mean that difference in meaning.
Well,
That's a given.
I in under my model, I think it does. I mean, that's your meaning has everything to do with the preference you have for it. Like I prefer the picture of my child over a picture of someone else's child because that has no meaning to me. So
Well, it,
I think meaning and everything come from us, which is why I think they're inextricably linked to preference and emotion and things like that. Those are all tied together because of that And I think we demonstrated that through that little thought experiment. And if you think everyone's meaningful in the same way, I'm still going to go with the person that I know because I'm going on emotion, which I think is where meaning comes from anyway.
Yeah, and the thing though is, again, that I always come back to what worldview do you take, because if you're acting in a physicalist universe, it still doesn't. What would meaning be? What would you be? What would anything? Would there be persons? Would there be actual importance in showing love, care for your family? So in that. But I wouldn't deny that you love your family truly, but because I believe that we have a there is true love in in the universe. I believe that. But if you're in a physicalist universe where it's purely material, what's happening is that there is no such thing as a meaning giver. As you said, there is no that logic is just descriptive, meaning is just descriptive. As you said, you've been saying, all right.
The meaning I
And so
give
if
to
it's
something, right? The meaning I
if
give
if
to something
no,
is
if
like, yeah.
yeah, but if it's just descriptive, if the meaning you imbue is just descriptive, it doesn't exist.
Well, it
It's not
doesn't.
real.
Well, okay. Is love real?
Well, in a physicalist universe, love isn't real.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, but it's a label we apply to a concept, right?
Yeah,
Like I mean, it's not a problem to apply labels to concepts, is it?
yeah, but in terms of like concepts are, I would say, like abstractions of things, so in a way that when 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 you're just a purely material human body without a soul, and so acting in this deterministic universe, um you're not a person. You're just matter, different from rocks or a tree. and
We're
and
different in some
you're not
ways.
you don't have, yeah, indifferent in some ways, but you're no different in what kind of meaning you give. And so in what the kind of meaning you give is just a concept. It's not anything. And so that's why we when it boils down to how the philosophers in the past have tackled this. I've admired, like, reading Camus and uh Kierkegaard and all of them, but
Yeah,
but
I'll be honest here. This it really sounds like a case of special pleading because you're saying that the love that you say you have for your family, or these concepts that you say you have, they're the same in a sense that they're describing the same things that I'm describing, but mine's different
Mhm.
because mine is because a God exists. Mine is more special.
Yeah, but but we're talking about coherence here, so in what because the reality that you're presupposing, um it changes what philosophical entailments the statements you claim have, right? So for example, when you're in a physicalist and purely material universe, and you look at a picture of your daughter, what do you see? Does your daughter have a soul? Does your What is your daughter? Is she just your is it just matter? So
Well, she's
it
another person. She's another person that
yeah,
I enjoy
yeah,
spending
yeah,
time
but
with,
but
and
but yeah, I agree. In a way,
okay,
you enjoy that in your mind,
yeah.
but you can't. But ultimately in a physicalist universe, you cannot derive personhood. there is no individual. There's no you in a physical
What?
worldview.
You- There's still a you. It's just it's that's a label that describes like an individual. That's not a problem.
Okay. Let me tackle this. You believe in evolution, right?
Yes.
Okay. So in an evolution, naturalistic universe, we're all evolved. So an ant would be would have would be meaningless. It's just bacteria would be meaningless. And so when you raise into continuing progress into to evolution, you become a fish or a dog, lion, and then apes and human beings. There's actually no difference there, and so there is
Well,
nothing
do
that
you think that
actually
God created all
intrinsically
those things too,
matters.
right? You think that God created all these other animals too, right?
Yeah.
So, do you think that you have more meaning than
I can hear.
I'm sorry, nope, lost him again. Oh, I was looking forward to that question too. Oh man. So, hopefully we can get him back. I'm going to give him a few minutes to try to come back. Until then, I'm going to pull up something else and try to, in the last 10 minutes or so, see what we can do here. Oh, we got him back. There you go. Welcome back.
Hey man, I really apologize for my
Oh,
internet.
no problem. I
I
understand. I
have no
understand.
control.
Hey, it happens. Not a problem. So, I get back to my question. Under your worldview, God made the ants. God made you also. God made humans. God made everything. Are you more
Yeah.
meaningful than an ant?
Uh, I think we are to God. I think God loves His creation, and so I think that it's not that it's I'm more meaningful, but I think we all have the same meaning with God. To
Do
me,
all
that God gives His creation meaning.
well because then I guess we could get back. This is actually a better iteration of my little experiment earlier. If you had a choice to kill an ant or my child, which one would you choose
Well, I would choose your child.
over an ant?
Yeah.
You would kill my child over the ant.
No, no, I would choose your
Oh,
child
okay.
to live. Sorry,
But yeah,
I
no
you're
problem. All
cutting
right,
off. I couldn't understand.
no problem. So if if God created all of these things and they all have equal meaning, again, we're you're going to a different factor. But I think that thought experiment is it's a little easier to answer, right? Because you say, oh yeah, I definitely killed the ant. That wasn't even you didn't even hesitate. So
Okay,
I
but
think
let's talk about what the meaning is, though. Like ant, what is the meaning of ants?
well, it's an
what are
intrinsic
they?
meaning,
What are their
right?
functions? What
Well,
are their
it has
functions?
nothing to do with
Yeah.
it has nothing to do with functions. It's just intrinsic. Functions don't matter to meaning because this
Yeah.
comes from God. I think we may have got him in trouble. If I did, I'm sorry. Oh, you good? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was gonna make sure we didn't get you in
And
trouble.
so
Right?
yeah, and so when we discuss the reality yeah, so when we discuss like what's the difference between me and that, so in the Christian worldview, why do we eat animals? Because ultimately that's the purpose of animals, for humans to have dominion over the earth.
So their meaning So are they not as valuable then?
Well, they're as valuable, but they have their purpose. That's what it entails.
Interesting. Okay, that's interesting way, but to me it was very I guess you really had no problem really going I definitely kill the ant over a person, and I think we both agree, but I think we agree for different reasons. I think I give meaning to things because because meaning comes from a preference, an opinion, and these things make me happy. You seem to think that
Mhm.
meaning comes from something else, so these things make you happy because there's a God. Is that kind of
Mhm.
is that correct, or you find meaning in things because of God?
Yeah. You're cutting off, my bro.
I'm
I
sorry.
can't.
I
Can you
guess
repeat that?
yeah.
I
I'm having no problem hearing you.
I
I guess it might be on your end, but so
mhm.
if we get into this idea that from my perspective, I give meaning to things because they make me happy. They have significance to me. They increase my perceived life quality somehow. You seem to think that you see meaning in things because they come from a God that imbued meaning into them for you to see.
Yeah. Okay, but I could I think we're still I wouldn't say that you don't the meaning you give to your family or your love is wrong or bad, or it's not real. But I wanna criticize the worldview that you're presupposing when making the statement. You know, it because um I want to ask, like, from a physicalist worldview, how do you arrive at you being a person? You know, that uh as you being you, and what is that meaning? What is the ontology of it?
Yeah, person is just the label that I guess we put on things that look like us. I mean, human beings. It's another word for human. Um, as far as how I know that I exist, I would just go back to the Descartes and the cogito with I
Mhm.
is equivalent to the experiencer. So in place of I think, therefore I am, the experiencer experiences, therefore the experiencer is.
Why? Yeah, okay. I follow cogito ergo sum, but okay, let's say you exist, you know.
Okay.
But I want to ask then, what are you in this thing that exists,
I'm the
and
experiencer.
why can okay, you're an experiencer, and what are you as an experiencer? What is your ontology?
You're going to have to clarify that for me then, because I'm not following where you're going with that. I don't really
You know,
understand what you're asking.
like a table is made of wood, a rabbit is made of meat, with its brains. What are you?
Hold on one second. Something's going on in the chat where people are deleting comments, and I'm not sure why. Huh, guys? If the comments are getting deleted, I'm interested to know about that, because let's see.
Bro, to be honest, like, I don't think I'll last with my internet because it's 5 a.m. here, 5:30, and the long when it reaches like 6 a.m., it slows fucking down.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, we can we can probably wrap this up here anyway. I think we've been going almost an hour
Awesome.
and a half. So, but yeah, I'd love to have you come back on. We have more discussions, pick different topics, and come back on sometime,
Awesome.
and we'll talk some more about
Yeah,
it.
you've been very respectful, man. Thank you
Oh,
so
you
much for your
too.
time.
You too.
Your
Absolutely.
this opportunity. Yeah, and hi to the audience. I hope that I've never meant to offend anyone. It's not that I'm saying that your atheist lives are meaningless or anything. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's in terms of in a philosophical critique. That's all. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Elmo. And guys in the chat, it looks like for some reason Streamlabs, which I'm not even using right now, somehow or another Streamlabs is deleting messages. And I will look into that and get that fixed. And hopefully come back next time and we won't have that problem anymore. So I'm going to look into that and try to figure out what's going on with that. So Streamlabs is obviously screwing me over. But thank y'all for coming. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll see y'all tomorrow. I got a show tomorrow. I'll be talking with Cyrus Christopher White. We're going to be talking about abortion. That was his choice and topic, so I'll let him choose. But come back tomorrow. That is at 2 o'clock Central Time, 3 Eastern. So join me for that tomorrow, and thank y'all for coming again. Bye.